Hi there and welcome to the channel. Now, it's been some time since I did a book haul because I've been too busy basically during the semester, but with classes over, I thought I would rectify that and show you the pile of treasure I've accumulated during the semester on my many trips to the used bookstores of Taipei City here in Taiwan. So, without further ado, let's begin, and we start with some Oxford classics. I've trained my wife actually on our trips out to look for the Oxford logo and then just pass any books bearing it to me for my perusal and potential purchase. And here are two more. First up, Romantic Rebels and Reactionaries. And there's a painting on the front that rather recalls Caspar Friedrich, but is in fact by John Martin from 1847, and it's after Byron's Manfred. If you haven't read Byron's Manfred, I sincerely recommend it. A tremendous work of romanticism that rather recalls Christopher Marlowe's Faust. Then we have the Oxford Book of Dreams, and I really don't know what is in here. One of my favourite accounts of dreams is by Sir Thomas Browne, the great 17th century polymath. Let's see if he's featured in here perhaps. Or I'll just flick it open at random. Okay, Mr. Edmund Halley. Okay. Mr. Edmund Halley was carried on with a strong impulse to take a voyage to St. Helens to make observations of the southern constellations, being then about 24 years old. Before he undertook his voyage, he dreamt that he was at sea, sailing towards that place, and saw the prospect of it from the ship in his dream, which he declared to the Royal Society to be the perfect representation of that island, even as he had it really when he approached to it. And that is John Aubrey, Miscellanies upon Various Subjects, 1696. And of course, Edmund Halley was the discoverer of Halley's Comet, or he was the person who observed it most precisely. All right, so from the Oxford Book of Dreams, what do we have next? Oh yes, Henry James. Now I know Henry James is very much an acquired taste. I have to admit, I have slowly acquired it, and I found a pile of Henry James books, first of which is a novel, The American, in this Penguin classic. I haven't read this one yet, but the next one I did read, and it is The Europeans, Oxford classic here. And I have to say, this was exquisite entertainment. It's rather like a Jane Austen novel written by an infinitely more talented writer and set in America. And it concerns two Europeans. They are aristocratic and they visit their distant relations in Boston. One is Eugenia, who's a princess and every inch a diva, and her brother, younger brother, is Felix, an artist, and he is really the main attraction of reading this novel. He's such an optimist and force for good, and he brings all kinds of wonderful events to pass for his relatives in this story. Very short, but quite magnificent. So if you've never thought of reading Henry James, or you've only read The Turn of the Screw, The Europeans, highly recommended. And then some short stories. So this one, Henry James Selected Tales. I think this is an Everyman edition. No, I can't even read it here. No. All right. And then more, A Penguin, Henry James Selected Short Stories. Not a very charming picture on the front, has to be said. And something else. What is it? Henry James, The Golden Bowl. And I'm not sure if this is short stories or a novel. I really don't know too much about it, but we'll get to it in due course. And next we have a sci-fi novel. I think there are a couple in here. This is another offering from Victor Pelevin, and I read his Amun-Ra about 2 years ago, a very short postmodern sci-fi novel concerning the Soviet space program. It was absolutely brilliant. This one's rather thicker, but we'll see what it's like. The Clay Machine Gun. And now, also from Russia, but this is much older, What Is to Be Done? And let me see if I can say the name of this writer. I don't think so, but it is N.G. Chernyshevsky. Okay, so it's about the Russian nihilists. And it says, they regard the present work as a faithful portraiture of themselves and their movement, and as such, they contrast it with the celebrated Fathers and Sons of Turgenev, which they consider rather as a caricature. And that is from a gentleman writing in 1883. So there you go. I really am a sucker for Russian novels from any particular period, so we'll give that a try. And that is published by the Vintage Russian Library. So how far back are we speaking about here? Oh, well, the introduction was penned in 1960, so quite an old book. Next up, a French text, and I do have this in English translation, but it is Moliere with his Le Tartuffe. Okay, so just for me. And now some literary theory. I think there are two from her in here. It's Helene Cixous, and it's a reading with Clarice Lispector. And Clarice Lispector was a Brazilian writer, I think I'm right in saying, but her ancestry, I think, derived from the Ukraine, and she's one of the best writers who's not really given much coverage inside the academy. Maybe that will change in the years to come, but she is a real heavyweight. And I flicked through this book, and it's very deep analyses of aspects of Lispector's work. So anyone interested in Lispector, and I know quite a few of you are from the messages you've sent me, you might be interested in picking up Helene Cixous' reading with Clarice Lispector. And next up, French dramatist, it's Racine, and this is by Lucienne Goldman. So what we have here, introduced by Raymond Williams, a very strange choice of a person to introduce a work on Racine, but we'll get around to that in due course. Literary biography now, and it is Kafka, and this is the Reaction Books series of biographies, which I found very useful in my scholarly work, because they really do just give you the facts and nothing else. The one concerning Heaney was particularly good. I have a whole bunch of them, so I'm quite delighted to pick up another one. This one is by Sander L. Gilman, Critical Lives from Reaction Books, Kafka. More biography, I guess. No, autobiography here, sorry. And it has an amazing cover. It is Sun and Steel by one of my favourite writers, Yukio Mishima, who is giving here some testimony on art, action, and ritual death. Okay. Next, some French theoretical writing, and it is Gaston Bachelard's The Poetics of Space. First came across this about 10 years ago when researching Denton Welsh's work, because one of the scholarly treatments of Welsh was his concern with intimate spaces. And the basic thesis was that the more confined he feels in terms of these little spaces he packs himself into, the more he feels his true identity can come out. And as someone who very much only feels perfectly content and comfortable and able to express myself here, surrounded by all my books, rather than when I venture outside into public, I really do know what that kind of mindset is like. And Bachelard basically theorizes those kinds of relations between individuals and space. This is a very good book. I do have an edition of it somewhere else, but that is a better edition. Here's the other Helene Cixous, and this one is good because it also covers von Kleist, and it picks up on one of my favourite von Kleist stories, Michael Kohlhaas, which is truly highly recommended. And it contrasts Kleist with Clarice Lispector once again, but it really does go through the stories pretty much paragraph by paragraph. This is incredibly deep, and it's great for students of literary theory to see how closely a critic can attend to the substance of a work. Very inspiring in that regard. And more Gaston Bachelard. It is his book on Lautreamont, the great French poet. I really don't know too much about this. I really do like the cover. He looks like one of those kind of bodhisattva type characters, doesn't he? Like one of those Buddhists who's achieved enlightenment there on the front. Essays by James Hillman and Robert S. Dupre. Right. Next we have some mythology, I guess it would be called, in a very nice Faber and Faber edition I found here. The cover looks rather, is it Greek? I'm not really an expert on antiquity, but it certainly doesn't look too Celtic to me. But what you have inside, Over Nine Waves, a book of Irish legends by Marie Heaney, are all kinds of Irish legends. And it covers the 3 major cycles of Irish myth. And so I was very happy to pick that up. Haven't read any of that one yet. Then another French artist, here with an introduction by Susan Sontag, and it is this doorstop. Antonin Artaud, the radical French dramatist and theorist. And when I was at art school in the late 90s, he was pretty much regarded as a god among the faculty on my program because he was just such a groundbreaking artist associated with the avant-garde and his theatre of cruelty. So this is all kinds of letters and poems, all kinds of bits and pieces regarding his output. And next, another interesting artist. It's a movie maker this time. Pedro Almodovar, who looks very much like Benny from Crossroads for anyone who grew up in England during the 1970s. No matter, this is another Faber and Faber book. Their books are always so well designed, and this is the Patti Diphusa Stories and Other Writings, and these are incredibly lurid stories about his heroine, Patti Diphusa, who's some kind of international porn star and is always plotting new ways to make money and find the best drugs and parties. And so it's very decadent. Right, I'll read you a little bit of this. The hardest thing for someone like me who has so much to say is to begin. I am Patti Diphusa, and it says here, Patti Diphusa in Spanish means flabbergasted, okay? And I'm one of those women who takes a leading role in her times. My profession, international sex symbol or international porn star, whichever you prefer. My photo novels and some of my Super 8s have sold very well in Africa, Portugal, Tokyo, Soho and the Rastro, the Madrid flea market. According to critics specialised in the field, my erotic interpretations have a certain something which can't be classified, something that makes me unique, something which can rarely be found in that kind of low-grade film. Okay. I see Almodovar as a kind of Spanish John Waters, I suppose, and this is very much in John Waters' territory, isn't it? So if you didn't know he produced writings, you've only watched his movies like Women on the Verge of a Nervous Breakdown, etc., or Matador, which was also very good, then you may be interested in that. And staying with Faber and Faber, we have Lawrence Durrell, a superb travel writer and a very gifted poet. There's a picture of him on the back. And for a long time, he lived on Cyprus. He wrote a great book about Cyprus, Bitter Lemons, one of my favourite works of travel fiction. And this is a thriller. It has another amazing Faber and Faber cover there. And it is White Eagles over Serbia. I really don't know if this will be good or bad. He did turn out a lot of crap, truth be told, basically for money. He was a sucker for money. And if he could fund his travel bug by agreeing to write something about it, he didn't care really what the result was much of the time. So you have to pick and choose with Lawrence Durrell. Let's try a little passage here. Journey into the hills. Okay, let's see what these hills consist of. It was still dark when the little green alarm clock beside the bed set up its discreet purring and woke Methuen. Oh dear, there's a very interesting name, signifying a lot in terms of social class, Methuen, from a sleep which had been relatively calm and dreamless. Sitting up in bed at the brink of day, he felt like a diver poised above a pool. Soon he must dive into the unknown waters of adventure. Where they would carry him he did not know, but action was relief from too much meditation. It brought into play a different side of his character, the part where experience and will took over from doubt and conjecture, where the buccaneer took over from the comparatively timid and law-abiding person he was. Okay, so there you can see very much that Durrell's reader sat at home, wrapped up in the covers, and perhaps sipping on their morning tea will think, hold on a second, I'm that comparatively timid character, but now I'm about to become a buccaneer. So it's kind of really appealing to the spirit of adventure, which most of us suppress in our rather quotidian lives. So we'll see how it goes. And now just a few more. I said there was another sci-fi novel buried in here, and I have come to it. It is The Day of the Triffids by John Wyndham. I remember the TV show of this that was made when I was a child, which was truly terrifying. All these man-eating plants just kind of going about their man-eating business. It was absolutely horrendous, but I've never read the novel itself. This is a Penguin classic. We will give it a try. John Wyndham, The Day of the Triffids. He also wrote that book, The Midwich Cuckoos, which was turned into a movie, wasn't it? What was it called? Was it Village of the Damned? Black and white movie. Oh, that is superb. Great writing. John Wyndham. 2 more to go. And this is by a French writer who usually adopts a very high-minded tone. It is André Malraux, who spent quite a considerable time in China. And I have his Man's Estate Penguin Classics over on the shelf. And I found this. It is The Temptation of the West. And it's an epistolary affair. And what you have is a Chinese intellectual who is in France and documenting their experiences in a sequence of letters to a French intellectual who is, guess where? In China, of course. And so that is what you have. So it's France through Chinese eyes and China through French eyes. And it just goes on like that for 100 pages or so. André Malraux, excellent writer. And finally, to finish, it's from the Caribbean. It is Omeros by Derek Walcott. His famous retelling, I believe, of the Odyssey. Is that right? There's also a play version called Odyssey. But this one, yeah, Omeros. Let's see. It's a poem in 7 books of circular narrative design. The title is the Greek name for Homer, invoked here by a Greek girl in exile in America, the invocation marking the beginning of a long journey home to an intricate web of places and histories and associations for the poem's characters. Okay, maybe it isn't a retelling of the Odyssey. I know he did do that in one of his works. Shall we have some of this by way of a conclusion? All right, so this is from chapter 17. Now, whenever his mind drifted in detachment, like catatonic noon on the Caribbean Sea, Plunkett recited every billet, regiment, of the battle's numerological poetry. He learnt 80 ships of the line, he knew the drift of the channel that day, and when the trade wind caught the British topsails, and a deep draught sigh would lift his memory clear. At noon he climbed to the fort, at his self-imposed Calvary. From it the cross of the man-o'-war bird rose. He heard the thunder in the cannonading caves, and checked the pamphlet from the museum, ticking off every blunder with a winged V for the errors in either fleet. In his flapping shorts he measured every distance with a squared, revolving stride in the khaki grass. One day at high noon he felt under observance from very old eyes. He spun the binoculars slowly and saw the lizard, elbows akimbo, belling its throat on the hot noon cannon, eyes slit, orange dewlap dilating on its pinned shadow. He climbed and crouched near the lizard. Come to claim it, the major asked. Every spear of grass on this ground is yours. Read the bloody pamphlet. Did they name it Iunalo for you? The lizard spun around. Beautiful, actually. Really beautiful. And so that is going to conclude this book haul. I'll be back very soon because, as I said, the semester is now over and I'm free basically to start doing what I like again. And foremost, among the things that I like is producing content for the channel. So I really have restarted the channel of The Disappointed Man in earnest last week and with this video, and there'll be another one to follow in not a few days. But until then, I can only repeat my mantra by way of farewell. Be safe, be strong, nanu nanu.